Obviously, there has been a response across the country to this tragic shooting. Here is L.A. Clippers head coach Doc Rivers speaking yesterday about Jacob Blade's plight.
What stands out to me is just watching the Republican convention and they're spewing this fear, right? Like, all you hear is Donald Trump and all of them talking about fear. We're the ones getting killed. We're the ones getting shot. We're the ones that we're denied to live in certain communities. We've been hung, we've been shot, and all you do is keep hearing about fear. It's amazing to me why we keep loving this country and this country does not love us back. And it's really so sad. Like, I should just be a coach. And it's so often reminded of my color. You know, it's just really sad. We got to do better. But we got to demand better. Like, we got, you know, it's funny. We protest and they send riot guards, right? They send people in riot outfits. They go to Michigan with guns and they're spitting on cops and nothing happens. The training has to change in the police force. The unions have to be taken down in the police force. My dad was a cop. I believe in good cops. We're not trying to defund the police and take all their money away. We're trying to get them to protect us, just like they protect everybody else. I didn't want to talk about it before the game because it's so hard, like, to just keep watching it. That video, if you watch that video, you don't need to be black to be outraged. You need to be American and outraged. And how dare the Republicans talk about fear? We're the ones that need to be scared. We're the ones having to talk to every black child. What white father has to give his son a talk about being careful if you get pulled over?
Yeah, you have at the convention, Doc Rivers, extraordinary. You have at the convention the sons of a billionaire who inherited $400 million, talking about fear, stirring fear, trying to stir fear among white voters in the suburbs that the blacks are coming to get you. Talking about the fear, just making things up. Talking about the fear, they're coming for you. They're going to abolish the suburbs. Gangs are coming to your neighborhoods and are going to kill you and your families. They talk about fear, Shauna, and yet, as Doc Rivers said, Donald Trump never had to sit his sons down and have the talk with his sons that, hey, you know, if you get stopped while you're driving in your Porsche or your Lamborghini or whatever they drive in, as you're going down to Atlantic City, turn the lights on inside the car, keep your hands on the dashboard, because if you make the wrong move, you may get shot. Shauna. I think we lost a Rev to you on that same thought that Doc Rivers, extraordinary point that Doc Rivers made.
I think it was an extraordinary point, but I also think it was extraordinary with Doc Rivers. Because when you see a LeBron, you see a Doc Rivers, you see people that are not activists like I am, that are not involved in movements for decades, but that step outside of their zone. Maybe a lot of people, and clearly from the polling, it is true, a lot of people that don't ordinarily give the kind of attention they should are going to look at this. And then you contrast it with a president who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth and never had to fear anything but getting caught up in some real estate schemes of discrimination, start trying to put fear in the hearts of people. He has people that held weapons on non-violent protesters in St. Louis and are under indictment for doing so, featured to speak at the Republican National Convention. That is why people like Doc Rivers and all are calling out. And you contrast that, lastly, Joe, and we look at the fact that the mother told the story. The mother of Jacob yesterday told the story that when she was standing at bedside with her son and said, "Let's pray," there was someone in the room, an officer, and her son said, "Are you a person of faith?" Said, "Yes." And he said, "Pray with us." They could pray together with people that you would think they would be angry at a time that a president is stoking fear. Fear against who and for what? This has to stop, and we're the only ones that are going to be able to stop it, and that's all of us together.
We have Shauna back now. Shauna, watching Doc Rivers, I've been a basketball fan my whole life. I've watched him as a player and a coach. I think that was the best moment I've ever seen him. What a beautiful message and a beautiful speech. And obviously it wasn't easy for him to do, but he felt like it was important, with the additional meaning, as he pointed out, that his father was a police officer for 30 years in Maywood, Illinois, where Doc grew up. What did you hear in that message from Doc Rivers? What did you see in his face? What did you hear in his voice?
I mean, I heard extreme pain, and I think that is being reflected throughout the country. I was watching the press conference with Mr. Blake's family yesterday, and I just want to read a quote that I ended up texting one of my friends from his sister. Quote, "He was not treated like a human that day. He was treated like some foreign object that didn't belong." And that is, when we see these shootings on tape, when we see these things happen, when we hear Coach Rivers say what he said, that's the reality that many people are living. And forgive me for bringing this back to politics, but part of the issue of the Republican National Convention is that it is like two realities. And this is kind of what Doc Rivers was talking about, that juxtaposition between this idea that a woman's brother went out and wasn't treated like a human versus the idea that it wasn't really being acknowledged by an entire party in the United States during a presidential election is really, it makes it in some ways even harder to deal with. And part of why I think Melania, and I heard everything Joe said about Melania's speech, as well as all of the things that her president has done and said, I heard all of that. But one thing that stands out to me about the convention last night is that Melania Trump, the First Lady, did acknowledge some of the division. And it wasn't like the entire convention was in this alternate universe. But the thing that is, it is interesting that you decided to sort of lead with this, because what Doc Rivers is saying is what so many people are actually living every day. It is that sense of fear, and we want our government to at least acknowledge that and at least try to work towards it, not even including what's happening with COVID-19 right now on top of that. All of these things make it pretty scary to be a black person in this country, and we have to figure out a way to work together to get beyond that, and we can't do it if a large chunk of the country is ignoring it.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.